Okay, so welcome back, everybody. We're going to do hopefully a short video here, but this was something that I didn't know when I first started, had a lot of questions about watching YouTube tutorials and not really knowing what I'm doing. So I wanted to make a quick video on it because, like I said, I want this channel to be based on things that I've learned from the time I've already been in here and hopefully help some people out. So what I'm going to talk about today is UI bindings. If you don't know what a UI binding is, I'm going to show you. So in a previous video, I set up a little health bar in the bottom here. And I just have this little volume here that when I go in, I take damage. And then when I come out, my health will start regenerating back up to 100. And then once it gets up to 100, I just got a little print that fires in the top saying health full. And there it is. So I've got a working little health system damage. Right now, I set this up in a way to not use UI bindings when I set this up, but I didn't really go into detail about what UI bindings are, why they're bad, why you should stay away from them. So I'm going to demonstrate that in this video. If you watched the previous video, then you saw how this was all set up. So I'm just going to give you a brief rundown just in case you haven't. So I made a health variable in my player and a health regen. And then when I take damage, I'm just getting my health, subtracting the damage, setting that as my new health, clamping it from 0 to 100. Here's what I'm doing different. I'm calling this function that I made. And my health regen is taking the health, adding the regen to it, clamping it, setting it as the new health. And then again, I'm calling my health update function. Okay, so this function that I made, this is the same function, update health, that I've called here. What this function is it's taking a reference to my health widget and I'm feeding in my health to it. So this set health right here is a function that I made inside my health widget, which I'll show in a second. So I created this set health function inside my health widget. And then because I have a reference to my health widget on my begin play here, I can feed my health right into it. And as you can see on begin play, I'm creating my main HUD, which has my health progress bar in it. I'm adding it to viewport and I'm storing that as a variable so that I can use it, have access to it. Anytime that my player is loaded, my main HUD is always going to be loaded and the widget is very small, so I don't mind keeping a reference to it here. So let's jump into the main HUD now. So this is my health widget here, or my main HUD with my health widget on there. So the way that I set this up, the way that I set up all my UI elements so that they work is if I go into the graph here, I have this function I made, set health. And that's the function that I'm calling inside of this function. So now I'm back in my HUD. Okay, we're back inside the HUD here. This is my set health function. So all I'm doing is grabbing my health progress bar, feeding that into a set percent, and then the health that I'm feeding in here, I'm just dividing by 100, which is my max health for this character. And then that gives me the percent that the health bar should be. Okay, so all I'm doing with this is feeding in my health, and this is taking care of the rest. This is setting my health widget to the right percentage. So again, if we go back to the character now, this is inside my player character. This is the health update. So this is the function that I made to update health inside my player. And this is what we were just looking at in the main HUD, the set health. So I'm getting my health and I'm feeding that health in. Now, whenever I take damage, here's where I'm taking damage. I'm getting my health, I'm minusing the damage, I'm setting my new health. So now after I set my new health, I'm calling this update function. And I'm doing the same thing when my health regains. As soon as I add my health regain to my current health and set that as my new health, I'm calling that update health function I made in my player. Now, this is a much better way to do this than using the bind. I'm only updating my health widget whenever I need to. So when I take damage, my health goes down, I update my health widget. When I gain health back, I set it and update my health widget. Now, if you follow a lot of tutorials online, I'm going to show you how they use the bind, and I'm going to show you what it actually does. So if we go back to the designer here, this is my health progress bar down here. So if you click on that, we have the percent right here. So that's what's driving the progress bar. Okay, we have that percent here. Right next to that, we have a button that says bind. Now, most tutorials, when you're setting up a health widget, they'll tell you to bind. So we're going to do that, and I'm going to show you what actually happens here. So you have to create a binding now. So now when you create the binding, we get this. So by default, it's set to get health percent is the name of it. Okay, and it's asking for a value. Now, you can do this one of two ways. You can either make the health in your player and then use the event graph on event construct. You can cast to your player, get the health in here. I'm just going to do it in an even simpler way than that, but they're both going to be the same. I'm just going to make a variable for health in here. So we'll say health variable and then widget blueprint. So this will be my health variable that's in my widget blueprint, and we'll just make it a float. So then if I just get that and divide that by 100 and then plug that into here, okay, now what we did is we just bound our health bar to this variable. Okay, and that's a quick and easy way to do it. Let's connect it up in the player and get it working. So this should only take a second to do. So what I'm going to do is disconnect my health and my update, and we'll just drag that out, get that out of the way. I'll disconnect my health here, and then we'll do the same thing right here. Just get my existing health out of the way, drag that stuff up. Now I have a reference to my health widget here, so I can get that variable easy. So we're just going to drag the health widget out. We're going to get health variable widget blueprint. So this is the variable that we just made inside of the widget. Okay, so I'm just going to copy that because we need that here too. Plug that in. And then we have to set that now. So we'll just do another one of these with a set health variable WBP. And we'll just do the same thing here and just throw this in. I don't really care what this looks like right now, so I'm just gonna do this quick here. Okay, so we got that going. We got to throw one down here. So now when we take damage, we're going to get our health widget and get the health variable that we made in our health widget minus the damage from that. Set that variable in the health widget, and then everything else should be the same. We're doing the same thing on our health regain. So instead of using my health that I made in this blueprint, we're grabbing the one that we just bound to the health bar. So all of my existing health code is out, and we should be bound using our new get health percent in the main HUD here. So let's make sure that that's going to work. So you can see that we took damage. Our health is going up. We can take damage. It's the exact same that it was before. We can take damage. Our health is going up. Health goes down when we go in. Health goes up when we walk away. So this is the same thing, right? So this looks like, it appears like it's doing the same thing. And it is to a point. But what I want to demonstrate here, so this is inside of the health widget. This is inside of the main HUD here. Okay, we're in the main HUD where I have the progress bar. What I want to do is just throw a print in here. And then I'm going to take this up one more step too, because this is going to go very quick. So what I want to do is just change the color on this text here. So I'm going to get a couple random floats in range, and we're just going to put that from 0 to 1, copy and paste that for our RGB, just so we get random colors on this print. And you'll see why I'm doing this in a second. So now whenever this get health percent bind fires to update our health bar, we're going to get a print. Let's jump in and check that out. And look at that print firing. So our health bar right now is firing and calculating our health every time you see one of those print strings fire. And I wanted to switch the colors and give it a random color, because if you don't, it just fills up solid blue in a second, and then you can't even tell how fast it's moving. So every time one of those prints comes on screen, I'm calculating my health percentage and seeing if my health bar needs to move up and down. It just doesn't make sense. If you're not taking damage or you're not gaining health, then you probably shouldn't be running any health code to update your health widget. So you could be walking down a long trail, go into a new quest. You could be walking through a forest looking for some food or doing something, and it could be a long time before you even run into anything that's going to damage you. But the entire time you're playing your game, this is what your health bar is doing if you use the UI bind. Now, maybe that's not a huge deal if you got a small game and you only have maybe like one health bar on your screen that's being bound. But the problem that I ran into when I started was I started following a lot of these tutorials, and I had a health bar set up like this. I had a sprint bar set up like this. I had a food and water bar set up like this. I had a oxygen bar for when I'm swimming underwater. So the more UI bindings you have, picture all these print strings running for 5 to 10 UI bindings at the same time. So if you're getting one update every frame per UI binding, you're getting 60 frames a second. You have 10 UI bindings. I mean, you can do the math. You're updating like 600 times a second with 10 UI binds. It gets to be too much. It took a while for me to actually figure this out because everything is overwhelming in the beginning. You're not sure what you're doing. You're following tutorials, and most tutorials just tell you, hey, just bind to a percent, and they don't tell you about this part of it. So these are some of the reasons why I wanted to start making videos on this channel, is to kind of help new players out, to let you know, like, if you want to use a bind, go ahead, but just know what it's doing. You know, there's no need to be updating a health bar this often when you only need to update it when you take damage and when you regain. Again, these are all the prints from one UI binding on one UI element in this game. So try and imagine that times 10 for 10 different bindings. So I'm going to go back in here and I'm going to pull these out. So we'll delete all that stuff, and then I'm going to put this back the way that I had it. We'll compile all that. So now we don't need that get health percent function anymore. And then if I try and compile this, I'm going to get an error because I still have the bind. It's still looking for the bind. So if I go into my designer, make sure you have your health bar selected. Now it says there's no bind there, but it still is trying to bind to a function. So you can come in here and you can remove binding, and then that should put us back to where we were here. So I'm back in my player here, and then if I go into the update health function that I made on my player, if I throw a print in here now, so you can see the difference. So now I'll print hello whenever my function fires. And when I walk in here, we got one fire. And then now it's going to fire about once every second or 2 seconds. I forget what I have my update for because I'm regenning health right now. And then once my health regens, we're full and it stops printing. So it's a massive difference to be running that code 60 times a second versus how quick are we updating? I want to say half a second. So I'm regaining half a second. Every half a second I'm calling that. So that means twice every second I'm calling my health regain, as opposed to if you're getting 60 frames a second, then you're calling your bind 60 times in 1 second. So I'm calling this twice in 1 second as opposed to 60. And again, if you have multiple bindings on there, you can use this same technique here to update basically any UI element you need to. But you should probably only be updating your UI elements when they need to be updated and not running them from bind and constantly updating them. That's all I wanted to say about UI bindings. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.